Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity.
Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on January 3rd, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat as we continue our discussion over time travel shenanigans. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Green-eyed music lover.
The girded loins of Green Eye.
I mean, oh gosh, we haven't even gotten into any of the physics talk. We haven't touched Destiny yet. We just did like a basic overview, and I'm still like, I need another drink. And I actually stopped drinking at 8, and it's now almost 11 my time. I have coffee.
Did you see where you've gone wrong?
I know. Maybe it'd make more sense, but I have to work in the morning.
Bygones.
Still.
Okay.
Last but definitely not least in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Man-at-Arms. Rick, how are you doing?
I am the world's smartest Titan.
That's not hard. And
hey.
That makes me remember I think it was it Black Flag that had the response to your lore bites? He takes the paintings of the warlocks and reduces them to the crayon bite-sized pieces.
You know, my question is what is your favorite color, Rick?
Blue.
How does it taste?
Blue.
Good. I love how this meme just took off, and it was just a gag. And it's taken off completely.
We needed our own thing.
You had Peregrine Greaves.
No, like warlocks wear pajamas, and hunters are fashion conscious, and like we punched things. And it's like, well, Titans eat crayons. It's like, of course we do.
Of course we do.
You know,
why wouldn't we?
My favorite scene from this last release was just Saint 14 trying to headbutt the Minotaur that comes out of the Vex Gate, and he takes the goblin and wraps it around him to get more leverage to headbutt even more. It's so good. It's just like, oh my god, I want to see him eat crayons now just because this is amazing.
Crayons is good, yeah.
Crayons is tasty. Bad for digestion, but tasty.
I do not like the pink ones.
What? Why? Why you don't like pink? Why you don't?
Yet. I don't know any more
I
Russian.
Morphed into like
I don't know any more
Boston
Russian
for some reason. And
Nostrovia. I can toast in 14 languages. I'm just throwing that out there.
That is really not surprising, actually.
Nope. To the surprise of no one ever.
But we have
crayon's good for Titan,
here.
Not good for pigeon.
Yeah.
Crayon's good for Titan, not good for pigeon. Black Flag, what's going on?
Yeah, we were doing introductions and then we got on a diatribe already. We should rewind time a little bit and get back to it.
Well, and I know everyone except for Green is looking forward to diving into the discussion, so let's get right into it.
I can preface some of this before we launch into it. So, in the top 3, the most important theories of time, you have example of all 3 arguably in Destiny.
Right, which is why I get confused sometimes with Destiny.
Which is also my biggest problem with all of it.
I can agree with that, yeah. And the problem, I think, Rick, correct me here, but the problem is those 3 are not, they're not They are they don't mix.
They're
like,
mutually
that's the point.
exclusive.
They are mutually exclusive. They're not supposed to be mixable.
No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
But that's what they're doing.
Do you think they're
just putting it in a blender?
I don't know that they know that they're doing it.
I'm pretty sure they know that they're doing it with as many people that yell about it. I'm pretty sure they know what's going on.
For each one of the three, because, okay, as you may have noticed, I threw random lore cards into the notes in the wrong place, which is fine.
I think I edited it. I edited it!
I do not Google Docs or type for that matter.
You do not show notes very often either.
I quit doing that like after episode 4. I'm not typing. Why?
It's fine. It's why?
Why? But no,
goodness.
for at least the big 3, there is a lore example within said lore cards that we can reference for, say, this is what's going on or whatever. It's going to get weird regardless because it's time travel and it's all theoretical anyway, so it's fine.
Which one do you want to start with?
I mean, we can just go straight down the line. Oh,
all right.
She's editing. She's editing in front of me.
I pushed it down to the advanced. I put it down at the
How
advanced
dare
episode
you
notes.
Copy paste
I
my
left
random
it
notes.
there. If you want to stay in the intro notes, you could
There's
totally
a bullet
stay.
point now. I mean, I don't even know how
feel
to
like-
make the bullet point. First of all, when I
Hang
put
on,
these
hang
in,
on. She's editing in front of me.
see now that looks like something I would do now, where nothing is lined up correctly. That is its final form.
Yep. There you go.
She just gone.
So you have the perfect paradox card, which I think was the first one you were about to reference before I started editing the show notes in front of you, like magic.
Well, that's our fixed timeline example.
Right.
And also, you could argue no time to explain as well.
Yeah.
Because we gave Saint 14 a gun that we made or he made for us or something.
We made for him that he gave to us that we gave to him.
But he was already deadish, which is a whole other thing. He's kind of dead. So it happened out of order. So when you're talking about a fixed timeline, time is not changeable. So, it seems like this should be the easiest one to explain, but it's actually the hardest one to explain, in my opinion. Because basically, a fixed timeline, when you go into the past, you are not really changing anything because what you're changing, you've already changed in your past, even though it's your present. So the result of you being alive and being able to go to the past is the result of your actions. So in other words, you're just playing your part as a cog in the giant construct that is time.
Yes, that would be correct. You can also see that, like the Merchant and the Alchemist Gate short story, which is another mention within Destiny, is a fixed timeline. So basically, all events are fixed points in time. So that any actions that you do in the past were already done in the past. There's a principle that's called I think it's Novikov self-consistency principle, which basically is exactly that. The problem there is that also indicates that there is no air quote free will, that it's all determined already. It's already fixed. It's, you're just exactly what you're saying. You're just a cog in this machine that is existence.
Well, that's a perspective.
Right,
that's also
well, fair,
the perspective that there's a higher power that constructed this. Or you could just say that all of the other roads have been closed down and this is the only road left. Mm-hmm. So you're just living out the result of something that to you from your point in time hasn't happened, but it has.
Correct. Yeah.
So that future was at one point unknown, but from where you're sitting, it's already happened. So it's not really predetermined by a higher power per se, but you could perceive it that way.
Yeah,
I guess that's
a good clarification. Yeah.
But you could also just be living out the results of the math that's already been done.
It's the destiny of it. Punch.
Yeah. Well, and that ties into the
actually
Vex
accurate.
and their. Yeah, and that also ties into the Vex and their probability machines.
Right.
But then you get the fun
does it,
thing.
though?
Yes, because you have causality. So the fixed timeline is steeped in causality because it goes back to the concept of the linear theory. So no matter what you do, so like time, your experience of time is not 100% going to be linear within this example of a fixed timeline, but the events that are composed of that timeline are linear. Even if you go back in time and do something, that event has already happened. It's a fixed point. It's not going to change. There is arguably no paradoxes within a fixed timeline because it's already done. It's already happened. Even if you go back in time and you quotes here, the one of the good examples. Okay, you say you want to go back in time and kill baby Hitler, which is the classic example of everything.
Oh God, we're doing the baby Hitler thing.
Well, the fixed timeline would say, okay, you go back in time and you kill baby Hitler. Well, in a fixed timeline model, then what happens is some other child become like it basically they become the figure known as Hitler. Like it's not going to change what happens. You can't.
Or
there is no
fail in killing
you fail, something happens in which you don't. Basically, your end goal of removing that figure is not successful because in a fixed timeline, it is a fixed point in time. Any actions that you do by going into the past have already happened, so therefore they're not going to change anything.
Well, that kind of segues into the next one nicely with the whole baby Hitler's a good way to discuss the next one. Mm-hmm. With the dynamic. I lost my show notes.
Yeah, dynamic timelines where the headaches start because.
Well, let's use your baby. Let's use baby Hitler. Okay,
right. Well,
this is where paradox starts.
Yeah, this is where grandfather paradox starts. Is what I mean. Is like this is where all your paradoxes, like actual paradoxes, things that blow up the universe, start happening.
Yeah, and by blow up the universe, they mean you just destroy a timeline that you don't exist in anymore, basically. Mm-hmm. So time still continues, but so you go back in time, you kill baby Hitler. Okay, I love this one. Baby Hitler always comes up because everybody wants to kill Hitler. It's just, it's a guilty pleasure. It's fine.
It's a guilty pleasure.
We're going to call it what it is. Otherwise, baby Hitler killing analogy would never come up. So you go back in time and you kill baby Hitler, but therefore Hitler never grew up. Hitler never performed the atrocities. Therefore, you erased your motivation to go back in time to kill baby Hitler. So being that you didn't know baby Hitler existed, or grown Hitler existed, you would have never gone back in time to be able to go back and kill baby Hitler, and the universe explodes.
Yeah, metaphorically speaking.
But the dynamic timeline's also all the best storytelling elements.
Right. That's
time.
Because you have things like the grandfather paradox where like that's where you have like you go. So the dynamic timeline is when you go into the past and you have impacts on the present. So like you can change things in the past and they actually have ramifications in the present. And unlike the next model that we'll talk about, the dynamic timeline is a single timeline. So there is no splintering of that timeline.
Okay.
Whereas within the multiverse, every time
Here we go. Here we go.
So
brace yourself.
Yeah, multiverse is where it gets real fun. Like
I'll let
you'll be.
So the dynamic timeline.
Well, actually, you go and I'll give a layman explanation or whatever. We'll see how. I don't know if I can give a layman explanation of this.
Stealth and chat. No.
So dynamic timeline is still kind of a fixed-esque timeline, right?
Dynamic timeline is a single timeline.
Fixed.
It's not fixed. It's
dynamic
a single
timeline is Back to the Future.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So
fixed timeline fixed timeline and dynamic timeline. You have a singular path.
Okay. There's only one.
Correct.
There's only one
existence.
version.
You're only in one dimension. Like you only
my
exist.
time cop analogy is dynamic timeline.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Listen to the introduction episode for that.
Oh, apparently there's an
an
episode where Barry Allen explains to Supergirl the concept of multiverse. Okay, so if you're a fan of the Flash in the Arrowverse,
I mean that's one version of the multiverse.
And comic books are multiverse. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so multiverse is the idea similar to dynamic timeline, but it's based around the idea of alternate timelines. And it basically posits that there's an infinite number of parallel universes, and that traveling into the past causes a new divergent timeline from the first. So because of this, you can change anything, but because it creates a new divergent timeline, only that new timeline is being affected. So the original timeline doesn't change. It's fixed, but you can't get back to it. So your new timeline is changed, so any paradoxes you create in that timeline are just consistent to that timeline, to that parallel universe. So you see this within like Terminator series is a lot of Terminator 2 and Terminator 3. This is a lot of problems in there. I think I think the other one that I saw was Star Trek. I guess I didn't know that one.
That's the newer movie. That's the
Spock. Okay. Okay. I got you. So that's the explanation of how they didn't retcon anything. But it was okay.
Or it's a way to reboot a franchise. Whatever,
right.
That's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine like wine. Okay.
So multiverse.
This exists in Destiny, but it's really complicated and blood's going to shoot out of my ears.
Okay.
And me and Green actually joked about this in passing, I don't know, a while back about Praedyth.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Praedyth was quote-unquote erased from time. And if you played D1, you remember that nobody really remembered who Praedyth was. He went into the vault. He didn't exist. Because, what we were always told is you go into the vault and the Vex erase you from ever existing, which we know that doesn't work because of our previous conversations. You can't erase somebody from ever existing because you change. The Vex are very cautious about monkeying with the past. So here, let me backtrack. Okay, so the clearest example you have of multiverse in the Destiny universe is Venus, which I couldn't find the card, unfortunately, because it talks about the Ishtar Collective, if I'm not mistaken, on Venus. Mm-hmm. They were studying on Venus, and then one day all these Vex structures showed up. And then someone... Oh,
when they pop into existence?
Yeah, and then they tested it, and I think they were billions of years old, if I'm not mistaken. If not billions, it was millions of years old.
Yeah, it was like they were
so
significantly, yeah.
So it was like they were always there. So that's an example of a multiverse, meaning that the Vex had constructed the Vault and their constructs, for lack of a better term, because I don't know how else to say that, on another version of Venus in an alternate Venus in an alternate timeline. And some kind of way, which was never explained, they brought that Venus into our Venus and made that world and brought it into our world, which is how we gain access to the Vault of Glass. So in terms of Praedyth, like we were mentioning in our previous conversation, you can't erase somebody from time because that would retroactively change everything that went up to that point. And the Vex also can't calculate Guardians because they can't simulate paracausality. So it's like they're trying to do a gigantic math problem, but instead of having one X to solve for, they have a very large number of X's that can do an infinite number of things that they can't calculate. So they're just kind of like, shit.
Just shoot it.
Just shit. So they really don't change with but when you're invading the vault and they're trying to protect Atheon and keep time's conflux intact so they can do their monkeying. Okay, maybe we erase him from time because this is a last ditch effort. That's the only way I can rationalize it. So to explain what happened to Praedyth, okay, because I'm very proud of myself that I figured this out. Or at least came up with an analogy that lets me sleep at night. They removed Praedyth from time in the vault, but they didn't remove Praedyth from all time. As you know, he went to the waiting room. So inside the vault, it's a Jenga tower. You know the game? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when Praedyth was in there, Praedyth was in that present. So as soon as something happens, it's a fixed point. You can't go back and change it. So what they did is they didn't erase Praedyth from ever existing. They just took Praedyth out of that present and they moved him to the top of the tower. So he still exists in time, just not at that point in time. So that's why nobody remembered him. But they couldn't totally wipe him out of existence. So they sent him to what I like to call the waiting room of Praedyth.
The cell. His prison.
He has the greatest view of anyone in the Destiny universe. He gets to see alternate past. I don't know if he's seeing simulations. I don't know if he's seeing actual streams of
I don't think
time.
he even knows exactly what he's seeing. Like,
Go ahead.
Not a lot of clarity with that.
No, at this point, I think he's just gone batshit and he's enjoying the ride. He's like, that's pretty cool. That dude blew up in that timeline that I've already forgotten about because I've seen 900 other things. Mm-hmm. So they basically just put Praedyth in the penalty box. And it's like, well, we'll deal with him later. We opened the door and Praedyth came back into being because not only did we know about Praedyth, like we bring the ghost to Lakshmi and all of a sudden Praedyth is a thing again in our world where he wasn't before. It was like, okay. I don't know why we went through all this, but that is a thing that happened and it seems like a really poor way to dispatch somebody. But, you know, hey, it's the Vex. I don't understand the beginning. I also don't understand how they exist in the past, present, and future, and they're a hive mind, and they travel back and forth, and they're not talking to each other. I don't get that at all.
Well, okay, so they're also, not only are they're kind of sort of hive mind, they're unitized, they're in groupings, because you have the Soul Divisive, who is kind of the outlier when it comes to the Vex. The other Vex don't necessarily like the Soul Divisive. There's mentions of them thinking of them as other in some respects, but like the others, I think they're still connected within the hive mind of their time unit, whatever mind you have, like the universal mind. Lee Golo from Halo, what's that?
The Hunters.
Oh, the Hunters. Yeah, that makes. I see them as units rather.
Well, the Legolo are seen as
huge.
Yeah, they're also like when they're in their hive or when they're in their colony, which is the hunter figure, they are seen as a single entity. But even the Legolo, like that single hunter, is a colony of Legogo worms. So, like,
which is. If the hive are, or not the hive, but if the Vex are the compilation of all the tiny radiolaria, then they're also a hive within themselves.
Right. Yeah. So they would be each individual like goblin could arguably be a colony of, or a sub colony of the radiolaria that then belongs to they're the hive mind of the Soul Divisive. And then, you know, each one of those components, so you have the goblins, you have the hobgoblin, you know, all these different sub colonies that then function differently based on what their assignments are, but then ultimately they are communicating on that channel, if you will, with each other. In order just to cooperate, in order to exist in the world, they have to, you know, communicate to move the body, move the suit of armor that they're wearing. And so then that also, if they have that level of communication with each other, then it's not as huge of a leap to understand that they have that level of communication with the larger, I don't know what you would call it, the larger community of their particular
collective.
Their particular collective. And then there's also the whole thing that they are kind of arguably part machine. There may be part machine somewhat or something because they're living metal.
I always think of them as, I can't remember, the Daleks from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Where you got the little thing in the machine.
The little squid guys.
That's just their conveyance.
Yeah, I mean, they are pretty similar. If they had a voice, I could imagine them yelling "exterminate."
Oh, God.
So, Vex or Doctor Who ripoff confirmed?
No. 100%.
Cybermen. 100% with Cybermen.
Do you want me to break your head a little bit more?
They combined it with the Cybermen. If you touch the Vex, you become a Vex. So, you know, they ripped off Doctor Who twice.
You ready for me to break your head a little bit more?
Do it.
The Vex are also within a linear timeline, as well as the multiverse timeline.
Oh, no, yeah.
I would agree with that.
There's a scannable on Nessus that says, this is like a cornerstone for Nessus, put here by the Vex to mark linear time. It's been 127 of our years since Nessus last traveled through our system. I don't know how many Vex years it is. So they're laying their own groundwork to create not necessarily an actual linear time, but they're marking time in a linear fashion. And Another scannable also on Nessus says, in some simulation of some far distant future on some alternative version of Nessus, this energy beam might serve some purpose that we understand, not here though. So there's your multiverse and your semi sort of linear timeline in the same scans.
Which is, and this is fourth wall type, this is the problem in the storytelling.
Is it the problem though, or is it the fact that they use time in such a way that it's a tool for them? It's not necessarily something that they are bound to, that they have no control over, but something that they can move with and utilize.
No, I mean from a writing perspective.
From a writing,
from a writing perspective, basically, it's like you said. Okay, vampires can be killed by silver, but they can only be killed by wooden stakes through the heart. In the same sentence. And it's like, wait, no, that's not. It's like you took a Blade vampire and you mixed it in with, what's his name, Boris Karloff, and said,
right,
these are both canon. Wait, no, that's not how this works.
That's not how this. You think this is a case?
You're just making shit up. Those two, they're not exactly different. It's just one is us observing that they are marking time in a linear fashion, like we mark dates on a calendar, whereas the other one it's the Venus thing all over again, where you have something that was from another time that's hundreds of years old type thing. It's just,
well,
they function in more that multiverse aspect.
Right. You have two different perceptions at war with each other. We perceive that it's like the mythological presence of Merlin. Merlin lives in a linear fashion, yes, but he lives backwards as opposed to everybody else.
Why would you bring that up?
But because it works. Because because that's the thing is like, he lives, his exposure or his perception of time is the same as ours. It's a linear progression. It's going forward, but what it looks like to us is something completely different. The same with
How
the
is
Vex.
he so wise? Because he's already seen that. That was yesterday. I mean, it's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I don't know of any other character that exists in that way, but how does he know so much? Because that was breakfast.
Yeah, that was But like that's to me how you can see the Vex as both being a fixed and in a dynamic, or fixed and a multi, because the individual Vex units are linear. Like if you could hitch a GoPro to them if you want, their perception of what they're doing is going step by step forward.
Right. Which is how.
But we
that's
perceive
just perception at that point.
Right. We perceive their actions as going around and hopping.
I take a small issue with the term paracausal.
This is going to be fun.
Oh no!
No, this is just semantics. This is just semantic. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a cop-out word. Because
just the fact to be not affected by causality.
No, okay. So this is why. Well, no. It's a red herring, but I just want to get this off my chest. Sorry.
No, go for it.
The Vex are all the Vex are the giant clock, and they're trying to fix and make the giant clock run a certain way, and it's all math. And we throw out the term paracausal. They can't calculate it. No, they're not paracausal. Guardians are not paracausal. Guardians are fucking supernatural. We have power from a magic ball in the sky, which is supernatural, and there is no math to calculate magic ball in the sky power. That's why they can't do the math, because it's science fiction. We are living science fiction. Can you do math on Merlin? No. Why? Wizard. Magic, it just do.
Well, if you're going to do the, was it significantly advanced enough situation? I mean, is it magic is just indistinguishable from technology if you're going to follow that line. Mm-hmm.
Not if your actual source of power is the supernatural. It's a giant
if you can
ball
can you understand the supernatural?
But that's what I was saying. That's why they can't do the math. Everybody likes to throw out the paracausal. Sounds very nice. It sounds very intellectual. I get it. It sounds cool. Okay. Warlocks levitate. This is magic, goddammit. This is not science. That's why the Vex can't do the math on us. Like I said, this is just me venting. This was not part. This was not constructive to the conversation. I apologize.
No, you're good. It's the paracosm. Well, this is an argument that gets brought up in chat a lot too, in Discord. It's the idea that because they're using.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw him too.
And this is the quote. And this is the quote that will be on my tombstone.
It's the Titan's answer. It's magic, damn it.
That's space magic.
But I mean, if supposedly, and if Ikora's any example with some of her books and stuff that she's written, as well as Asher, there is math behind it. We just don't see it because nobody wants to read that shit.
I mean, I want to read it, but it's not accessible to me.
Well, and they do have the capability of figuring out singular Guardian's light, because that's the whole thing with Saint 14 and the Martyr Mind. Was that they were able to compute that singular piece of the supernatural.
But that brings us back to the argument if that actually
though.
Even happened.
Well, no, it happened. It's just because we took out the Undying Mind, it technically doesn't happen in our past anymore, but it happens in our past, but not Saint 14's past because he's alive, not dead.
Right.
Well, but you also have the whole, I'm going to call it the ripcord of all of this happened in the simulated infinite forest thing.
Oh, yeah, that's...
So did we actually even see the real dead Saint 14? We don't know. Which, I mean, from a writing perspective, I think that's brilliant, because you could always go, no ho, ha-ha, that never happened.
Right.
We fucked up very badly, so magic, goddammit. No, I'm just joking. But no, it's just, I think it's a nice safety net, because you go, well, did it happen? Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. That was one of the arguments that we had with the whole Curse of Osiris, is the fact that everything that we were doing was taking place within the Infinite Forest.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
It could all be...
Did we ever leave?
Did it even happen?
Yeah. Right. Is this a dream?
The Curse
of this whole thing?
Curse of Osiris was a different version of Beat Saber when you really think about it. That's all we did for a season.
Because we went into a giant.
We ran down a hallway in a virtual world that we are told at the beginning, this is not real.
I really want Beat Saber stick. Have you seen the what is it called? It's the
Beat Saber.
It's the pole
yes,
staff.
I said Beat Saber.
I want the pole staff version. I want a Destiny pole staff Beat Saber. I want this to happen. I want to run with my Guardian with my freaking arc staff and just beat the snot out of Vex.
I'm making a point to never talk about Curse of Osiris, because just like, Panoptes is doing things. Well, he's doing things in the magical virtual reality machine. Awesome. How is that going to affect me outside of the magical virtual reality machine?
The thing is that virtual reality machine is the Vex simulating ways to beat us. That's the whole purpose behind it.
Right, but in that logic, then us interacting with that virtual machine is actually helping them.
Right. Which is kind of the funny part of this whole thing, that we've just basically handed them some keys towards our own demise.
I was completely triggering chat. Excellent.
Yes.
Spectral Blade Hunter Beat Saber mod.
Okay.
Yes.
So going back to the vault, in connection, the Infinite Forest and the vault are very similar. Well, or almost identical. Because
the purposes are different, though.
The purposes are different, but the vault really doesn't exist either in our time. Like when you go through the door of the vault, you are removing yourself from
you're going into
space-time,
a different waiting room.
Right.
So the vault doesn't actually exist in the... Whatever goes on in the vault has no effect on the rest of the universe, apparently.
Well, okay, so it's kind of... If you want to take it from a very, very light touch to it, but it's not much different than going into Ascendant Realm.
No, I would agree with that. Except
it's a thought realm.
Well, I don't know about
In
that
some
because like the
respects.
vault technically is the confluence of timelines. Like, so you do have
Right,
a
but
physical,
if
you have a
it's-
physical
if it's-
component there that's not just paracausal, or not. Sorry, not
Right, but as soon as
psychological.
you step into that area, it's not of this necessarily of this plane.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I see what you're saying. Absolutely. But everything in the vault is hyper real, as opposed to Infinite Forest, where it's Beat Saber Raid.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which I think would
basically-
be the difference between the vault and the forest, right? Is the vault actually is affecting reality, where the Infinite Forest is simulating it.
right.
Well, the Infinite Forest is also dynamically changing,
Correct.
quote unquote, every time you go
Right,
in there.
because it's learning from you, yeah. Whereas the
Walking
vault
into the
is a
vault-
reflection of
Go ahead.
reality.
It's like walking into Freddy Krueger's nightmare realm.
That's fair.
Like,
I can see that.
Once
yeah.
you cross the plane, it's their rules apply to a degree. I mean, there's limitations on the rules, but that whole raid, there was a magnitude of like shit going on in that raid. It's like if you actually, I mean, when you read, well, I mean, you guys have read about it, obviously. Jesus Christ, who am I talking to? Mm-hmm. But the ramifications of the Volta Glass raid, when you're just a person going in and playing it, like, oh, that was cool. When you read the lore behind it, you're like, oh God, everything almost went away.
Right. Well, I mean, you have things like what are they're not called harpies, but they are harpies. The gorgons that can just erase you.
Yeah. From
Absolutely erase you.
Well, they send you to the Jenga penalty box.
Jenga penalty box.
I mean,
Well,
we
no-
still don't technically know what is it? 2 of the names of the Praetus fire team?
3.
3.
Or
Because
if
you
there
have-
were
you have-
3.
Yeah, we don't even know if there
They're
were.
just gone.
Yeah.
Because the
We
argument
know
was they were
Praetus-
race that never existed.
Yeah.
Or maybe they tried to 3-man it, which is why they fail.
Yeah, because you have to have more than 3 people to go into each gate and take out all the oracles. And I did not like that raid. I was
Oh,
not
man,
good
I
at raiding.
loved-
I
then.
love that raid.
Like, that was.
I was.
You see,
I want to go back into it.
The sadist like the Vault of Glass. It's just,
It's fine.
That was before they did the. Or no, they randomized the sending, didn't right? Because it used to be the structure where you had to, if you were against the wall, you got sent into the final fight.
oh yeah. When they retooled it, it was just
And
like
then
we don't know who's going.
Yeah, then they
but everybody's
because they
going.
made it random after. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, and then no, when they put in the challenge, it's like no, everyone's going.
Oh
Wait,
god,
what?
that challenge. Yeah, that. Oh.
What? I don't want to go in there. Oh no, you're going.
I need a cleanse.
And then you always had the one guy that we forgot to tell him not to shoot sleeper simulates.
Oh gosh.
Or maybe we told him to specifically.
because you put up the bubble.
No, you shoot. No, when you went in to kill the oracles, if you shoot an oracle with the sleeper
Oh.
simulant, it's coming right back at you. I don't care if you're flying.
really?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
I never tried that. I just remember once you got out and jumped to the center, you're like
Don't-
getting
no,
ready to be
that's
cleansed.
the rocket
you
launcher.
Don't shoot.
Don't rocket launcher.
Yeah, but you. Oh my god, it was so bad. I died so many
Fraggle.
times because I had I died because of Kevin.
Oh no, Fraggle was
He
the one
never
that
lis-
was the
oh
key.
my
That was the
God.
same as King's Fall. Someone would
my
pop.
God.
Someone pops the bubble right as the rocket gets launched.
Pops the bubble in the wrong spot in Orcs and Crota. Crota was worse because Crota, it was like so easy to put it in the same spot every time, and for some reason Kevin just couldn't do it, and it's just like, dude, seriously, I'm going to hurt you. And I'm like, I'm not a violent person with raids, like I'm really easy going, but I literally stopped and I screamed out like, who the fuck put a bubble here? And all you hear is this man who's probably like 350, can bench press like 300 pounds, go, oh my god, I'm so sorry. It's like, dude,
This
I'm
is the
5'2",
bubble
and I just
placement in
castrated you
history.
verbally. Fix it.
That's like if someone puts the bubble in Crota the wrong place. I'm like,
That's what it was.
was that the thing?
That's what
Okay.
it was. That was where it was.
that's-
He put
that's- I remember
'cause
this
instead
story.
of putting it
Yeah.
tucked away,
Yeah.
he moved it to the right, over like by the bridge where the bridge actually starts. And I'm like, you fucker. Oh my god, it's so mad at him. I'm kind of
Crota was the
oh
one
my
that gives
God.
you PTSD with all the glitches. All it took was Crota coming into the back room with you, and I was like, no.
Well, Crota coming into the back room, and then you had orcs with the ogres.
Yeah,
that just decided to go wherever they wanted to.
Yeah, the teleporting ogres.
Oh my gosh.
Crota was the first time I remember being like, you were like, okay, we're gonna go to the back room because it's safe. And we turn around and Crota's like standing right there. We're like, you're not supposed to be here. This is our room. Go.
This is our room.
This is our room.
It's our clubhouse.
You're not allowed.
But let's go back to time travel.
Every time that happened, I go, things have gone awry. Everybody just knew. Just run in any direction you did not see Crota. Okay, back to time travel.
So, oh my gosh. Okay, so time travel, Vex, the Vault, the Infinite Forest. Do we have other examples? Do we think the Black Garden is affected in the same way? Or is it actually linear? Or is the fact that the Black Garden exists in multiple places, in multiple times?
Well, we did.
There's always...
We do know that there were multiple gardens, and they were anchored on Mars after the Black Heart was destroyed.
Right, but there's no time tied to it yet. At the same time,
well, I guess that's fair.
The Black Heart is still growing. Right, but the Black Heart is still growing within it, so it still adheres to the laws of time, even though it technically is outside of time, which is its own fuckery that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean,
I think
it still has linear
progression
time within it.
I think the Black Garden is the only real universal fixed point in time in Destiny.
Is it though? The Black Garden, like, there's the aspect of the growing into the future and the past, but if that's the case, that's just the flowers, right? That's not necessarily the Black Heart or even the Vex within it, the soul device within it. Those are still affected by normal time.
No, I think those are just parasites on a thing bigger than what the hell we even know what the hell it is. Do we know what the hell it is?
The flower game. Kind of not.
Not really.
There's a lot of theories on it still. I think that's just something as a physical place. It just exists. You have a few pockets. Okay, so you got Praetus Waiting Room is just a place that exists. The Vault is just a place that exists. Whatever the hell this mess we made out of Mercury or Osiris made out of Mercury, that's a place that exists. It's very small and contained, but it's like a pocket dimension. So good job there. I mean, They have to be dating. That's a lot of trouble to go through to get your drinking buddy back from the grave. I'm just throwing that out there. That's.
Oh my God! Have you read that webcomic?
No, I literally just threw that out there.
Oh, there's a webcomic where it's Ikora and it's Osiris, and he's like all pissed, and she's like, you two just need to get a room. He's like, what? And he's just like, and it's just, I'll have to see if I can find it. It's freaking hilarious.
I've ripped a hole in all of existence because I need my drinking buddy back. Wait, wait, I've had many good friends in my life. I've never put the entire universe in peril to have another beer.
I mean, at least it isn't like ripping a hole in reality and tossing your son into it, and then out comes the Vex.
Well, okay, hang on. That's a little bit of a misrepresentation. He tossed him into the hole because he cut a hole, because Crota summoned the Vex.
Because he let out the Vex.
I mean, I think that was more for spite. Like, get your ass in that hole.
No, I mean, after he did it, but like Crota cutting the hole just for funsies because he wants to see what happens.
Yeah, I blame Savathun for that one.
Is it Savathun or is it just Iralock and Nuke?
No, that was Savathun. Savathun tricked him into doing that.
But they were still involved.
I mean, wouldn't you cut a hole just to see what happened?
No.
I totally
I don't want to go to prison.
That... I'm not talking about stabbing a bitch.
I mean, isn't that what we're talking about?
No. That's not how this works.
That's not how this works.
Everything is Savathun. I'm over that shit.
Don't be over that shit, because I think that shit's going to come back.
No, it's coming back, and I
think we're still going to get more Vexy stuff first, but
is
pretty sure with what the moon's just on hiatus right now.
Zavathun is like the opposite of Satan. She convinced the world that she did exist, as opposed to convincing.
I was like, where is this going? Like, where is this?
I totally exist everywhere, all up in your head.
Oh my god, she is the game.
She is the least sneaky person I've ever heard of. This is the opposite of subterfuge.
She's just everywhere.
It's like, listen, I'm totally spying on you right now. Why are you telling me this? Wait, she went to this is the worst tradecraft I've ever seen in the field. I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't know. I still think that Zavathun's got more to do on freaking Moon than we also had the pyramid ship. Like, we have so much story left to do that will tie into her. I think that there's too much left. She's got to have more coming.
You brought up the moon, and that goes back to my whole supernatural thing. This is why I think the Vex invaded the moon. The whole Vex incursion.
Because they want the pyramid ship power?
No, because there's freaking ghosts they don't understand walking around the moon and like, no, that's more of that stuff we can't calculate. We got to kill all of this.
Blow it all up.
Nope. What's the math come back? There is no math. That moon's gone. That's it. I'm over it.
You think that the Vex came in because of the ghost rather than the pyramid ship?
Well, it's all connected. There's like, okay, there's all this cool paracausal stuff going on the moon. We got to put a stop to this immediately. This does not fit into the math.
This needs to be nipped in the bud.
CIA
stat.
Right, but gosh, then what about Eris?
Are we gonna? I mean, could you be more specific?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to be, but I also kind of want to see where you take it, just with that lead in. But
okay, I'll go. Here we go. It's fine. I'll take the bait. When she touches the statue and she has that grin. This is the way I interpreted it, because I've seen that look in real life. To me, it was the receiving of knowledge, because when you are tortured by something and you're left in ignorance, and all of a sudden everything makes sense, you would grin. It was like, oh, okay then. That's what's going on. Now, whatever that was, I have no idea. I really did not understand the nightmares, what they mean. I don't understand. Okay, this pisses me off. I understand nightmares and barrier nights and unstoppable hive and all these things. How the hell did the Cabal get hive shield technology on Mercury in a different timeline? I don't understand this besides game mechanic, and it pisses me off.
Hive on Mercury within the Infinite Forest?
No, not the Hive, the Cabal. I'm sorry. It's like I understood the unstoppable knights and the barrier knights and the different loadouts and the different perks you had to. It's like, okay, this is evil darkness hive magic. I get this. And then we go to fight the Cabal in Ultimate Timeline, and there's an unstoppable Colossus. I'm like, wait, what? We're mixing metaphors now. Sorry, I had to get out. I don't know what the fuck's
nightmares. It's not the nightmares aren't the. It's not the moon's nightmares. It's our nightmares. We're fighting basically our own figments of our imagination that are really freaking powerful, that have manifested all over the universe at this point, or all over the solar system.
I still haven't killed Nightmare Mithrax. That dude's pissed.
Really?
Oh God, he's like 980 or something. He pops out of he's hanging out in a little bitty tunnel that goes nowhere. I mean, it's just like he's I'm chilling here. This is cool.
Yeah,
just chilling. Oh, look, a guardian. Why? Why? I have to bring 6 people in here to deal with you bastard.
It didn't take that much the first time.
I don't understand. I honestly, and I'm just throwing this out, I didn't understand anything. I understood. That's not true. I don't understand a lot of what went on in the moon. I understand the lore of it, the pyramid ship. I understood the Clovis Bray facility and all the research. We talked about that, the two of us. I got all that. What was actually happening when we showed up, I'm like, okay, so the evil four-sided dice can manifest red things. Cool. Why?
Because magic? No.
Probably.
Because psychology more than anything, actually.
I did like Eris's whole stages of grieving process that he kind of surreptitiously threw in there as you liberated the souls of her dead fire team members. I thought that was it was out there, but it wasn't like in your face out there. I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
A subtle touch to it. Yeah.
I like that. If you paid a little bit of attention, it was like, oh, okay, that's a nice little story arc. And then she touches a statue and grins at me mischievously. Why? I don't know. And I also didn't walk around a pyramid ship because there was a shiny ball in the middle of the room, and I needed that immediately.
I got to play it a few different times, so
I just
you're
love
not
that.
missing much.
I needed that immediately.
Shiny. This is mine.
There's not a whole lot of extra in that space. You can go up to a few door-like things, but there's barriers in the way where you can't actually go into them, or you get like fuzzy on the side of the screen type thing if you get too close to them.
I did.
You weren't missing much.
The most Titan thing possible inside of the pyramid ship because
Did you punch it?
No. I looked off to the right at one part, and there were like two little red dots in the darkness, like off the side of the ledge. So I totally charged that to see what that was, and
that was a light.
It was two lights over an abyss. But I confirmed that it was not a scary monster. So you're welcome.
Good. You saved me. You're like my dog. You bark for no reason. But you totally saved me.
Totally jumped off the ledge, Peregrine Greaves and all. No regrets.
Oh my gosh.
YOLO. I'm like, whatever that is, I'm coming.
Oh, God.
It is death. Excellent. I've died many times. Not a big deal.
It's okay. I've tried to climb the statue to see if you can get above it or anything. It's really hard to. Not very easy. You fall to your death quite a bit. I spent a lot of time doing that because reasons. Blue, do we want to tie this back into any sort of time traveling shenanigans before we start to get to the wrap up point?
I think we pretty much. No,
I don't know how you recover from this.
Yeah.
Is there
I'm
good.
any
concise way to like wrap it up? Like there's the concept of the Vex, there's the concept of what we deal with linearly. But and dynamic timeline and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like I think the thing too is like the time frame or timeline theory of Destiny is at least as far as our perception is still developing. So like it's hard because we're coming at this and we're trying to understand what's going on when we don't have a full picture. And it's already we're kind of at a disservice already because it is a fictional realm, so they can kind of play fast and loose with the rules as it is already. I mean, like Doctor Who is a prime example of this. Don't try to logically follow Doctor Who from a time traveling perspective. Like you will get frustrated, and like you sit down and you have to have a suspension of belief. Like you have to just enjoy it for the story it is and the shenanigans that they get up to in it. Like if you start being like, well, that's actually paradoxical and that doesn't make sense. Like they do like a bit of a service to it, but they don't hold to it. That's kind of my approach to time travel within Destiny. Also, is like I'm like, okay, I just kind of have to accept it on the surface because otherwise I just start seeing a lot of problems. And honestly, that's how I deal with time travel in a lot of entertainment mediums, is because and that's kind of what we were talking about with the dynamic timeline. It makes for great stories if you're looking at a very small picture. But when you start thinking about the conclusions beyond the rolling of the credits, that's when it starts becoming very problematic. Because, yeah, sure, you save the day, hurrah, and the credits roll. But in reality, that's not how that works. And so it's
a fun thought experiment without going into too much of the ramifications.
Right.
Of it.
You just have to suspend your belief for that story. And then when it's and they lived happy ever after, you just kind of have to be like, okay, well, that's a nice story, but it's not going to actually work. So I mean, that's the problem that I've had with whenever entertainment mediums start doing like, we're going to do time travel. It's like, oh no, because it usually just ends badly. Like they once you open that Pandora's box, there's really not a lot, unless you do it very sparingly. Like, there's really not very many directions you can go before you kind of have to start, like, getting pretty heavy. I don't want to say, like, retcons, but you have to get pretty hard-handed. Yeah, you start getting paradoxes, which, I mean, I guess if you are going to use those paradoxes as a catalyst for a future story, I mean, you just have to be careful with the dominoes that you start tipping over when it comes to this particular thing. And I think they are, but it's just, we'll see.
So what I'm hearing is time travel can't actually happen because reasons.
Are we talking in
reality? Real life? Or...
Yeah.
Sure thing.
Well, so...
In real life? No.
Reality, so...
Not today.
Not today, and... Technically, like, this is actually, there's a lot of different camps for this part. So a lot of people believe that it's outright impossible. And even those who admit that it is possible, currently speaking, or in our current standpoint, it would be fatal to anybody who chose to undertake it. Like, you would not survive it today. Like, if we suddenly had the ability somehow to travel time, it would be more than just the ability. We'd have to have a very significant boost in technology or resilience or something, because our bodies could not handle that particular form of stress.
Right.
Even like,
is it still under the consideration of the black hole?
No,
idea?
like even I mean okay, so like
that, or like,
well, I mean, okay, so let's talk about just like the innocent little one that we did for top 3. You know, like, let's jump into the past. Our bodies don't have, I mean, just from a biological standpoint, our bodies are not capable of handling the germs and the biological component of a different time frame or time space, because there are pathogens and viruses that existed at that point in time that no longer exist today. We would die from just simple exposure.
Right.
Then you have the process of actually traversing that. So like, even with your, like, you have to undergo certain stressors to literally travel that space or that time. Like, if you're, and this ties into like the concept of time being a fourth dimension, and all that. You know, there's, and I think it was Einstein kind of described it as a additional coordinate. So it's just, yeah, it's just their body, the human person that exists today, even those who admit that time travel would be possible, are almost uniformly in an agreement that even if it was possible, we would not survive. It would be fatal to the person traveling.
I'm going to say this politely. So the UFO enthusiast, the reason, if you ever watch one of these documentaries, it always revolves around a ship that is powered by gravity or generates its own gravity, and its own gravity inside. So, you know, the laws of inertia and velocity don't apply to you, because that's the only way this would work with an organic being.
Yeah.
So it's like the default cause and effect. It's like, well, in order to do this, we need a magical spaceship. Gravity. Gravity is magical. Okay, aliens fly magical gravity spaceships. Time travel. So that's the thing. Today in our modern technology, it's not possible. Mathematically speaking, it's possible. Could we physically do it? No.
Yeah.
Do we have the technology to execute the things we need to create to be able to make we skipped over the whole infinite tube thing for a reason. When we were talking about Stephen Hawking, mathematically that makes perfect sense and it could work. You cannot put a human being in a centrifuge and spin him at 1 billion revolutions a second.
I mean, you
without
can.
there being.
There just isn't gonna. There's not going to be a human when you get done.
There's going to be some adverse side effects.
There's going to be a stretch piece of skin that needs to be squirted with water every 20 minutes.
Best case scenario, you poop your pants.
Me. Then why is there such a... I'm just like, okay, so then why is there such a fascination with the idea of going and changing our past? It's just that psychological, if I could redo it again type thing.
That's my opinion, yeah. It's the same as, the grass is greener on the other side.
Right.
It's the concept of humanity is constantly reevaluating everything that they've gone through. It's that idea of hindsight's 20/20. If I only fixed this, if I should have done or like the time cop thing that Rick was talking about, like go through door B. Well, the reality is that reality is not that simple. It's not just a binary switch that you go right instead of left. There's so many other possible ramifications to it. But in our limited perception of reality, when we're looking back at our present or our past, we put meaning to it from our present. So like depending on how you're feeling today, yesterday could be a really good thing or a really bad thing, and that will color your flavor of being like, I would rather have done this and then that would have made me happier. Well, I mean, would it? And then that goes into the whole concept of synchronicity, and it starts the ripple effect is very significant. That also ties into the concept of Sonder, which is a whole nother conversation. But Sonder, really briefly, is the fact that every single human person exists as a completely complex creature in and of themselves. And so when you're talking to a person who's talking about time travel, they exist within their own set of reality. So, but a lot of times when you see time travel being used in entertainment, it doesn't take into account all the, what I refer to as the NPCs of the story, because all of those NPCs are doing the same thing that the main character is doing. They have all their own complex things going on. And time travel is a way of humanity simplifying what has happened and being like, oh, well, it also teaches. It's also a process of teaching. Like, you can apply what you learned from your mistakes in the past, you can apply to the present and even to the future. And so that's a way also that you can kind of see that being an educational process psychologically as well.
Okay, Blue. Rick. I hurt.
I mean,
I like talking and debating about these things, but time travel I don't like it because it's just theory after theory with so many problems.
Right. Well, and that's it's a lot of theory, and there's really nothing concrete. Like there's no way of being like, okay, well, if we did it like this, it's all a mind game. Like it's not. There's nothing.
Right. But it's a mind game that breaks the rules.
Yes.
I mentioned at the very beginning of the series when we mentioned string theory. Like I read physics books for fun in high school, and if they are written in such a way like Brian Greene writes, or even Einstein actually wrote a really easy to comprehend type book. It doesn't have a lot of the mathematical problems in it, but it gives you the thought game. It tells you how to think about it in a way that is going to make sense in the grand scheme of it. That's okay. But trying to quantify and create allegories for
something that's not quantifiable.
Right. And things that cannot happen. They cannot physically happen, or we have no experience of them happening. So there's no way to even consider how it would actually happen. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating frustrating on a very deep level. And I feel for anybody who's like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about time travel because time travel hurts. Well, yeah, it hurts because it's something we can't grasp because it's all theoretical and it's all beyond our scope of understanding with even just the most basic concepts to try to construct it.
Yeah,
it just falls apart.
You're trying to put logic on something that breaks the rules of logic. Well, it's not even that. It's you're challenging something that is so axiomatic to our worldviews that most people don't even think about it. Like the concept, it's the concept of time, and a lot of people just take time. Like a lot of people will take that for granted, that time goes past, present, future. The idea that your present could be someone else's future or your past could be someone else's future it turns things on a head. And a lot of times people get uncomfortable when paradigms start doing flip-flops like that, because it challenges a lot of things that a lot of people just take for granted and makes the comfort, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Flatland. Flatland is actually a really good one. Sorry, chat was saying to read
Flatland.
How
this started out with a
my mic was
all
muted.
These examples. It's okay. Did you have something that you wanted to jump in on?
One of the smartest friends I've ever had in my life, whenever this conversation would come up, he would immediately go, no, time travel, I'm out. And I'd start to explain it to him. And I'd start to explain it to him. He would go, no, bullshit, time travel, I'm out. I'm like, you have an IQ north of 150. He goes, nope, bullshit, I'm out. I was like, okay, then. In story writing, rule number 1 should be don't write about time travel. Period. Like ever, in anything.
But that goes back to when we were talking about tropes. It's a fun trope to talk about.
That being said, though, if you follow like a fixed timeline, it can make a really fun read. Like that's Alchemist and A Merchant's Gate. Like it's a short story, but it's based around a fixed timeline, and it's all about like the perception of the two, the alchemist and the merchant, and like their perception of the same timeline and how it's the same timeline, like basically, but the person doing like his manipulation of quote time is actually not a manipulation of time. It's actually the reason everything happens. And so like it's a Pandora's box that if you open it, you have to be prepared for really bad stuff to happen if you're going to try to make it make sense in a big story. Like if you're doing a short story, it's easy because you just be like, "Yeah, we're done. Goodbye." Like,
so here's a question. We always talk about visiting the past because the past is something that has already transpired, so it's something we can visualize, that we can theoretically go back to. And the idea of the ripple and the butterfly effect of everything, time cop, time bug, whatever, affecting everything. We only talked about the past.
It would be effectively the same if you visited the future, though.
Right, but if you visited the future, you're not affecting. You're the past self visiting the future. So,
but your lack of presence in the past from the time that you left to the time that you come back will be
right. But you would have already been
in a fixed timeline,
predestined to do that.
In a fixed timeline, you could argue that was the case. In a dynamic timeline, the synchronicity issue would come up.
Oh my god!
Oh no! Yeah, everything falls apart and then you die.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the summary of time travel: is everything falls apart and you die.
If you go to the future and you stay there,
I guess
fine.
Yeah, because as long as if we're all agreeing that
if you go to the future and you come back, that future is probably not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you now know what happened, and you knowing has changed all the events that led up to the happening in a dynamic timeline. So it doesn't happen anyway.
Right. Whereas in a fixed timeline, it's already happened anyways.
So it's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But you die. It's fine. It's murky. It's murky because we always assume that the future is malleable.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to figure out a way to say. It's like that's also assuming that time is traveling in a linear fashion.
Do not bring up Endgame to me. I'm going to refer to my friend's
Kung Fu
quote on
Panda
that.
2?
Bullshit. I mean, okay, I'll give Kung Fu Panda 2 a pass. Don't even get me into friggin' in-game. Oh.
All right, so shout-outs before Rick goes off on a rant.
Pull up my notes that I've been like, oh my god, I can't even follow this anymore. Because we've been off show notes for a little while now. Next week, our guest is Saint's Workshop on the topic of Eva's journey. And upcoming, we're going to do a behind the scenes on the 15th, recorded with Salty Cat. We're going to talk about art and Destiny community artist, and I don't know what else. He wanted to come on. I said, okay. So we're going to talk about stuff. We'll figure out what it is when we get there, because that's
how we do things.
My friend Howard. Yeah, sometimes. And he's an artist. He does a lot of graphic design, and I know he's talked about helping redo our stuff for the show. He's done a ton of work for other podcasts as well as streamers. He's done a lot of the digital art thing. He's not so much of a physical art or like a tactical art. He's definitely more in the digital realm. So we're going to be talking about that with him on the 15th. I'm not sure if we're recording that one live or if we're going to record it offline, but you will see that coming up in your feeds in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Tag.
And then finally,
Rick, you're it.
Yeah.
I'm it?
Yep.
I'm going to shout out somebody that truly he deserves it. Mr. Boop Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know Boop, you're not living your full life. You should know Boop. That's it.
Isn't year 2020 the year of the Boop or something?
You know what? I don't try and understand what he do. I just go with it. Boop is a fixed point in time. Defies all
from
logic
Greed is just like
understanding. Chad agrees with me.
Is Boop on PC or is he on Xbox?
Boop will be on PC because we actually donated a PC to him.
Nice. I'm going to come and demolish Boop in the Crucible because I despise Boop Cannon users, and I know that's one of his favorite things to do.
I mean, it's literally his whole persona.
Yeah. I'm going to come and put an arrow in his face.
This is fine. He'll take it.
We still haven't done a 1v1.
Me and you?
We've talked shit to each other all the time,
I'm not
but
doing
we haven't.
that.
Yeah.
I got shit to do.
No, you don't. You lie.
There's no reason to get involved in all of that.
You don't want to try to shoulder charge a shotgunning, bow slinging hunter?
To what end? There's no engram at the end of that fight.
It's the prize of saying you can beat me.
Okay, so if I win, I beat up a girl. If you win, I got my ass beat by a girl. I can't win.
I can't win.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Why? What you think? You catfish somebody else with your wares, woman. Bullshit.
I'll hustle you if I want.
Catfish someone else.
You gotta get up early in the morning to get one over on me. I was born and raised in a briar patch.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man. Well, another big shout out to Lethargic Hades. Thank you so much for the Podbean patronage. And then also to, I just blanked on Taboo Emu. For the
emu.
Oh my god.
Emu.
Wait, no, that's not how you say
emu.
that.
It's a bird.
Emu.
Is it though? Is it?
Mew.
It is.
It's a landlocked bird.
It's a landlocked bird.
It's it's like a dinosaur, really. Honestly, if you think about it.
Fair enough.
Taboo emotes. Yes.
Taboo emotes.
That's correct.
Oh, don't
That's
Google
correct.
search
I award
that.
you 500 points. No, do not look that up.
Do not look that up. All right. So until next time, guys, have a great night. Have a great week. I guess at this point, I hope you've had a great week, and we will see you later. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright. There was a war about them? Yes, there was, and they won.
That's not what happened.
The War of Emus?